Okay, good morning, everybody. Again, thank you all for joining us on the wake-up call. We really enjoy starting the day together and really just putting some time and effort into personal development. And we do that right now, going through the book, The Little Things That Matter, The 100 Ways to Improve Your Life Today by Todd Smith. And I'm very excited today to announce our presenter, the person going through that with us today, and her name is Patty Carson. I've known Patty for, I think, 14 years now. We've been working together. I've just watched her succeed in business. I've seen her just become a wonderful leader. She was actually featured in Work From Home magazine because of her success. She's had numerous achievements and awards, and a lot of it's just because she loves people and she loves to help people succeed, and I've seen her grow many, many leaders, and just excited to hear from her today. So with that being said, Patty, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Chris, and good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm happy to be here, and I'm so excited about this book. We're going through the book, A Little Things Matter by Todd Smith, and, it's just listening to this every day, just kind of it's this quick little chapters, but they just build upon each other. And, Chris talking at the beginning of the call, my success, it comes from the personal development. So I encourage you to get on here and invite other people to come with us. But today our chapter is 38. It's Speak Well of Others. And it's a short chapter, but it really spoke to my heart. It says, at some point, you have no doubt experienced what it feels like to have people talk behind your back, and you know how painful it can be. Speaking ill of others reflects poorly on our character. Not only do unfavorable words hurt the other person, they also damage our credibility in the process. When we criticize another person, others, often perceive our comments as a ploy for our own personal gain. When our words persuade others to our point of view as to the faults and shortcomings of someone who is not present, we are taking unfair advantage of that person. This holds true whether we're talking about an individual, a group, or a business. He says a recent trip to his local supermarket is a good example. He only needed a bag of ice, so he took a shortcut through one of the empty lanes to get to the service desk. A cashier happened to be in that lane and said he could help me. I told him I didn't realize his lane was open because he was standing off to the side. He proceeded to tell me about the stupid policies of the store, ranting the entire time, and spoke nothing but ill of his employer. While he was unloading his personal dissatisfaction, I was, questioning his motives and forming my impression of him. I immediately sized him up as an inconsiderate employee who failed to see himself as a store representative with an obligation to act and speak accordingly. Where your attention goes, so goes your emotional energy. Focus on positive things, and your life will be positive. Focus on negative things, and your life will be negative. When you say destructive things about others, it has a detrimental effect on your emotional energy and your attitude. On the other hand, when you brand yourself as someone who refrains from speaking disapprovingly of others, people's respect for you grows. And when you refuse to say something negative about someone, you demonstrate self-control and concern for others. In the words of Dale Carnegie, any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, but it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. Do not, however, confuse speaking of someone in a derogatory way with participating in a formal critique, such as a job performance, reviews, or when you're asked to point out deficiencies for the purpose of helping someone improve in certain areas. In these instances, use tact and diplomacy to focus on performance issues and always avoid personal attacks. And, I used to be a county treasurer, and, sometimes you're in a job where you take people's money and get taxes. you get around, people talk about you. I mean, it's just negative. But I had to realize sometimes they weren't talking about me. They were talking about the fact that, that they didn't like what they were doing, and I had to learn that. And sometimes you have to learn that. But I, been in positions where I've been talked about, and I remember some of the best advice from my dad gave me. He goes, listen, whoever is, they're talking about now, they're going to find somebody else to talk about later. And something else I read, we're either balcony people or basement people. And whether we lift people up or put them down, if you're constantly lifting people up, talking positive and being that person, you're a balcony person. But if you're a person that can only see the negative and talks about people, you're a basement person. And it's like I've been on calls where I hear that, and it hurts me when I hear, people talk bad about people, because I've been there. I've been at the subject of that, and I know how it feels. And so I really try to change those conversations. And, even going into my hairdresser, sometimes there's 4 hairdressers in there. It's a local community, and they'll get on a subject, and I just keep my mouth shut, or I'll pop in something positive. And, but the back of my mind is, what are they saying about me when I'm not around? So I really, really try to be careful about how I, talk, and how, to not buy into that game. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Chris, for your feedback.
Well, first off, your father is very wise, and he gave you some very good advice there. And then I really love the other part you picked up from wherever you picked it up from there as well, the basement or balcony people. That's great. Just my 2 cents on the subject is obviously it's unbiblical. It's talked about numerous times in the Bible how we treat others, and to not backbite and slander others. And just like everyone else on the call, we've all had personal experience with this, either first making the mistakes of doing it. I know I've found myself at different points in time, and you'll catch yourself sometimes. You're like, oh, my gosh, I'm talking about someone behind their back. And often I'll feel compelled to call that person and go, hey, you know what, I was talking to so-and-so today, and, I shared this or I said this, and I just wanted you to know, and sometimes it's hard. It's very challenging. And I've definitely been on the receiving end of it as well. Sometimes people campaign against you. Sometimes people will actively seek out, position or honor in ways that causes them to manipulate or to diminish someone else's character. I know in the corporate world, especially with a normal job, sometimes that's how you get promoted. It's how you advance. It's a game. It's almost this normal thing. But I know that myself and Sarah, we actually experienced this in a church setting over a decade ago. But my wife was invited to go on a trip with some ladies at the church, and one of them held a high position in the church, and was responsible for quite a bit of stuff. And anyway, on the trip, my wife had invited her mother along. And so they were going down to the Mercantile or whatever in Dallas down there, or the Gaines place or whatever. And anyway, this person that had a position in the church and was responsible for some things, she was talking about everybody's business. And I know when they got back, my wife was like, oh, my goodness, you wouldn't believe, they were talking about this person, talking about that person. And my mother-in-law, we had tried to invite her to go to that church because we were, at that church there for quite some time. And we were like, come church with us, come church with us. And every time we'd invite her, she'd be like, no. I mean, if that person, thinks it's all right to tell everyone's business like that and do that, I would never go to that church. And so I think sometimes we don't understand how negative it makes us look, how I think we sometimes feel compelled to do it for whatever reason, but just like the book is saying, it has more of a negative impact on what people think of us sometimes. So I think we either fall into one or two categories. We fall into the category where we talk behind people's backs and say things like that, or we disconnect and separate ourselves from those situations, just like the book is saying. So I think it's very good stuff. And Patty, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, that's a great word. I've had similar experiences, within the church. Not to say that's bad, but it's just you see that and what goes on. And speaking of that, before I end with a little challenge, I do a daily morning walk, and I listen to my Bible while I'm walking. And it just so happened that the verse 2 days ago, it was the first thing that came to my mind with this chapter. It says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." And it says, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" And I just thought, when I listened to that, because when you get in those situations, you have to understand, none of us are perfect, but just think about the feelings. And the one thing, he said, if it's a work environment, if you're going to talk to somebody in a work environment, instead of being judgmental, remember the basement or balcony, do it in a way that's constructive and how you would want to be talked to if you were in that situation. So anyway, so now to the challenge he has. He says, "I encourage you to follow these tips to avoid conversations that could damage your reputation and the reputation of someone else. Refuse to engage in negative conversations about others. Decline to be part of groups who speak poorly of others. If you are surrounded with people who thrive on criticizing others or talking behind their backs, it may be time for you to reconsider with whom you spend your time." So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Chris open up the call. And remember, guys, we do these every morning. And we also wakeupcall.com if you need to go back and listen. Thank you, guys.
Great job, guys.
Great job.
That was great. Thank you very much from Arizona. Thanks.
Thanks, Patty and Chris.